Hey everybody, my name's Paul, and today I'm going to be doing a video on how to achieve your entrepreneurial dreams. For a lot of people like myself, working for yourself rather than for a boss is very, very appealing. You get to call your own hours, you get to do what you enjoy, most likely. The whole lifestyle is just very appealing, and there's the potential to earn a lot more money than taking a cut of the pie from someone else. But any of you who have tried entrepreneurial ventures know it's super hard. It's difficult in a lot of ways. It's challenging to communicate with people properly. It's challenging to manage all aspects of a company, even though you might not be an expert at most of them. But today I'm going to talk about how you can sort of overcome these challenges and how you can really launch your entrepreneurial venture and have success with it, despite being perhaps inexperienced or unknowledgeable in an industry. Before I launch right into our topic, I'm going to give a shout out to my video sponsor, hub.careers. It's an awesome site, and if you haven't yet, go check out the tools that they've got available on their website. All sorts of career advice, interview tips, job hunting tips, everything. The website's free. You can sign up for a free membership and get full access. So definitely go check it out if you enjoy this video. There's more great content there. Anyhow, onto our topic. Probably the most important thing for achieving your goals as an entrepreneur is learning from mistakes. And I'm sure you've probably heard that from 10 different sources, but I'm hoping to expose a different side of that phrase today. What I mean is specifically learn from the mistakes you make organizationally. Probably the biggest killer of startups that I've seen personally is people's inability to hold strict deadlines that they set for themselves. This is really tough because when you're calling your own hours, it's tempting to allow yourself to sleep until 2 in the afternoon or work until 5 in the morning and do all sorts of crazy stuff. And for some people that works, but you can't have an unorganized schedule when it comes to what you're going to do. And in fact, you can't have no schedule, which is how I find most startups to start out. It's not enough just to be passionate about what you're doing and to know what you're doing. You have to know when you're going to do it and how you're going to do it. A great technique that I was exposed to in business school that I've carried with me and used every day is called the SMART goals technique. SMART being an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-oriented. It sounds kind of hokey and it sounds like a textbook way to approach entrepreneurship, but I found that if you really apply it correctly, it can do a lot of things for your company. So let's use an example. Let's say you have a company that is selling a new type of camera. Maybe this camera is some proprietary technology that you've developed. You're starting from the ground. You have just this great idea. You know how to build it more or less. Or even if you don't know how to build it, you know what you want it to be like, what properties it's going to have, etc. How do you go from knowing what you want to end up with to actually ending up with that? It's a big leap. Start out by having an organized timeline. For example, if you say, today all I have is this idea, and in 2 years I want to be producing these cameras. That's a great start. Give yourself a general time bracket from here until there and make a definite goal in time by which you're going to be producing. Your product's going to be online, whatever the case may be, however you're distributing your product. Next, this is very important. Next, after that, set big milestones at increments in between now and then. It's not enough just to say, my goal is in 2 years we're going to be on the shelves of every Target. That's not going to cut it. What you need to do is find the milestones that will get you there. So my favorite way to do this is to start at the end and work backward. Let's say I'm selling this camera, and let's say I want to sell it in Best Buys, for example. My end goal is in 2 years, my camera is on the shelves in Best Buys all across the country. How about that? So what I do is I take a step back and say, 6 months before that, what does my plan look like? Well, 6 months before it's on the shelves in every Best Buy, I'm signing a contract with Best Buy. Okay, now we've got somewhere to jump from. Now what happens before the 6 months before it's in the shelves? Okay, it's in the shelves, step back a bit, I'm signing a contract with Best Buy for drop distribution to all their stores. Step back even further, I have pitched it to them. Okay, so now I know that I somehow have to build up to a pitch. That's going to be a link in the chain that gets me there. And it's crazy how much you actually know that you don't realize you know. So you can work it all the way back and say, I'm in the store, I am signing a contract, I've given a pitch, but before I give a pitch, I have to prove that it's a viable product. So there's some sort of test that you run. Before that, you have to do research and development. In order for it to actually be a viable product, you know just before that you have to do the legwork and you have to do the research and development to get it there. And how are you going to do research and development? Take one step back further. I'm going to team up with this company, or I'm going to hire this engineer. Come up with very, very specific steps that are going to get you to your end goal. But most importantly, come up with steps that must necessarily lead to your goal being accomplished. That way, if you fail, and here's where the whole learning from your failures topic is going to get drawn back in, if you fail to meet your goal in 2 years, and your goals are very, very specific, you can look back and say, oh, well, I never did my R&D, so my camera never passed the viability test, so the rest of the chain fell. This way, no matter what your mistake is, you can target it and pinpoint it exactly, and then you can make the changes necessary to actually move your product forward, or your company, whatever your model is. So that's the essence of SMART goals, is specific. You know exactly what your goals are, and you know that if one of them fails, you can find the link in the chain that collapsed the system. Now, the second letter of the acronym M starts for measurable. This is really important because it's easy to make abstract goals like, I want to be in stores, I want to sign a contract, I want this, I want that. But there's a great saying that says, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. I think it kind of applies here. If you don't know specifically what you want with your goals, you're gonna just sign up for the first thing that comes your way, or you're gonna do a subpar job and not even realize that you're selling yourself short. For example, rather than saying, I want my camera to be in stores and Best Buys in 2 years from now, try saying, I want 15,000 units to be in 500 Best Buys nationwide by 2019. That's very specific. That's numbers oriented, and if you don't meet that benchmark, you know it's something that you can say, yes, I did this goal, or I didn't do this goal. That's what it means to have a measurable goal. Now, the A in SMART goals stands for achievable. This just means you can't shoot for the stars every time. It's great to have high ambitions, it's great to be optimistic and hopeful, but you got to make goals that you know are within your ability. You also have to make goals that are within your capability. So if your goal is to produce 50,000 units of a product, but you're building it in your garage, that's simply not achievable. You have to scale up, or you have to scale your goal down. Either way, achievability means that your production is compatible with what your goal is. Which sort of brings us well into the next letter of the acronym, R, which stands for realistic. If you are a single-man consulting firm that just started 2 months ago and your goal is to have 1,000 new clients by the end of the second quarter, that's just not realistic. And having unrealistic goals will end up hurting you in the long run, because then you don't meet them and your projections become off, and it's a whole cascading snowball effect if your goals aren't realistic, as they are measurable, specific, and time-oriented. The final letter of the acronym, then T, is time-oriented, and this is by far, in my opinion, the most important one. It's awesome to have goals, especially if they're specific and you know if you're able to do them and you know they're realistic and all this and that, but if you don't have actual dates appended to them, they are useless. If you own a t-shirt printing company and you say, like, here's a specific and measurable goal, I want to have 10,000 t-shirts sold and I'm going to count that as a success. Well, and how long? You know, if your goal is to have them sold by the end of the year, break that then down and say, okay, quarter one, I want to sell, 500 t-shirts. Quarter two, yada, 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 yada. And you start to structure goals around time. And then that way you can check up and run diagnostics as you're going. And if you're not meeting your goals on time, then you know you're not going to continue on the course that you projected. And that means it's time to start changing the way you're doing things. It's time to intervene. It's just time to take action. And you don't have to wait until the train wreck piles up and you fail ultimately to be like, oh man, we didn't hit our goals. You know, as time's going along, if you start missing specific benchmarks that have specific dates, then you know it's time to start doing something differently. So try it out. Open Google Calendars, open iCalendar, whatever platform you use, and go add in some very specific dates to your calendar and put a reminder on them so it sends an alarm to your phone. And if you haven't met it by that day, then you know where you failed. The method of helping incentivize yourself to meet these goals is to hand a friend a $20 bill and say, hey, if I haven't finished the design for my t-shirt print company by the 31st, you can keep that 20. For some people, that's all it takes. In the grand scheme of things, $20 isn't a whole ton, but it's enough to jog your memory, and you know you're not gonna sleep through your alarm, or you know you're not gonna totally space it and be a month behind or something like that. So those are just my thoughts on how goal planning can help you accomplish your entrepreneurial dreams, and how you can see without a shadow of a doubt where the break in the operation chain is happening if things do go astray. As long as your goals are very specific, if they're measurable, if they're achievable, if they are realistic, and if they're time-oriented, there's no way that you don't know what went wrong. Either A, you accomplish your goal, you live your dream, you succeed, or B, you see exactly where things went wrong. And from there, it's very easy to go back and say, okay, I missed this milestone. And that way you're not starting at ground zero and you're not taking shots in the dark. You're looking back at a specific place in time with specific actions and actionable changes. And you're saying, okay, I know I missed my print quota. I didn't print this many by this date. I go back, I fix it. And now you're essentially establishing checkpoints in your workflow. It's a bit of guess, check, and revise. You're making these goals that are your best suppositions about how you're going to be able to conduct business, and you see if you meet them. If you meet them, awesome, on to the next. If you don't, you revise what you're able to do, what's realistic, what's measurable, yada yada. Go back, try again, and you just repeat the cycle until you do achieve your goals. And I believe that's the best method of doing it. I know it's probably the most tangible, keeps you the most accountable. So hey, thanks again for watching this video. Once again, this video is brought to you by hub.careers. Go check out their site if you haven't yet, and if you enjoyed this video, you'll love content on their site. There's lots more like it. Thanks again, I'll see you guys next time.